Welcome to the October edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Coming up in the next half hour, we'll find out how Autism Speaks helps families in the Twin Cities. And we'll meet the new superintendent of School District 622. All that and more is straight ahead on Northeast Journal. Hello everyone and welcome to the October edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Every month on Northeast Journal, we give you an inside look at the people and places that make up the Northeast section of the Twin Cities. After 10 years as District 622's superintendent, Patty Phillips announced last year she was stepping down. Her replacement, Christine Osorio, took over this fall. Producer Mary Klein and photographer Nick Anderson recently sat down with her and talked safety issues as kids are back in school.
My number one goal as a new superintendent is to just get out there and make connections, not only with internal but external stakeholders as well.
As students begin preparing for a new school year, so does the new superintendent of District 622, Christine Osorio. With years of experience as an educator, principal, and chief academic officer in the St. Paul school system, she has a great deal of experience with immigrant populations and English as second language students. She says there are 57 different home languages in the district, and that suggests diversity is the new normal.
We really have not just one particular group of immigrants here. We've got many from different countries and backgrounds, and so it's pretty exciting to be building a system that is really responsive to the needs of all of our students here. And it's an area that I've spent a lot of my life working in, so I'm pretty excited to be here.
Osorio says safety is a priority for the district. She believes promoting a safe climate begins with building relationships, and staff in the district are trained in building strong community in the classroom.
The most important ingredient for school safety is positive school climate and culture.
By law, Minnesota schools are required to have 5 fire drills, 5 lockdown drills, and a tornado drill during the school year. The new superintendent says she encourages schools to conduct them early in the school year and often.
It's important that when we do drills like those, they become routine. When we do them regularly, they're less scary. And so they don't need to be something that sends people into a panic. It's just kind of how we do school. Part of being in school is that we learn our safety routines. And so, yes, we do encourage administrators, use the lockdown as a tool.
She also says her number one back-to-school safety tip is for kids to know their addresses and phone numbers, and if possible, to staple a note card with that information to a backpack. She says it's surprising how many students don't know that information.
We do find a lot of students, surprisingly, who don't always know their address and don't always know their phone numbers, especially if it's a student who's moved recently. And it's just critically important as we're starting up new bus routes, new schedules, and new routines that students are really clear about not only their home address, but also where they're supposed to go for after-school care.
On November 3rd, there'll be a levy referendum put to vote for an increase in operating and technology levels. Osorio says in order to become a destination school district, they must remain competitive.
Of all the top 20 school districts in the metro area, the largest school districts, we have the lowest operating levy of any of them. And so we believe our students deserve to be on par with other districts in the area as well. And so we want to make sure that we're offering all those opportunities that we can for our students as well.
And on Northeast Journal next month, Superintendent Osorio will join me here in the studio to talk about her first few months on the job. St. Paul firefighter and paramedic Shane Clifton died while on duty in late August. His service was held recently in Maplewood. Here's some video from the service.
On behalf of our congregation and with my colleague, Reverend Lon Larson, I welcome you to Gustavus this day as we gather as a community to grieve the death of our brother in Christ, Shane Clifton.
It is in times like this, times of loss, that we turn our hopes toward and our thoughts toward the God of heaven.
It's been said that when we are born, we come into the world crying and surrounded by people full of joy. When we leave the world, we are full of joy and surrounded by people who are crying. What is our loss is Shane's gain. We will cherish our memories of him as a much loved, kind, and gentle man. He will live forever in our hearts as he walks by God's side until we meet again.
Our pastor once told us that grief is like a book on the shelf. Sometimes it will fall off unexpectedly and come crashing onto our lap, and we will have to deal with it right then. But in time, we will reach for the book and open it and reflect on the life of our beloved Shane.
Shane was big and he was loud, he was charismatic. He was a little rough around the edges. But everyone on the fire department knew him. I'm really fortunate that I was one of the few that got to spend a lot of time with him, worked a lot of years with him. And a lot of people always ask me, they're like, what is it like working with a guy that dynamic every day? I think the best way I could describe it is I'd tell everyone it's like having a front row seat to the greatest show on earth.
Shane Clifton was a beloved father, son, cousin, friend, and a superb firefighter paramedic with St. Paul Fire Department for 8 years. Following the tragedy of 9/11, firefighters across the nation use the term never forget. Never forget means that we have lost one of our own. Never forget means that firefighters are in mourning. Never forget means Shane's family is now part of the local 21 family forever. Never forget means that Shane will forever be in our hearts and minds. Now as we move Shane to his final resting place, never forget means that St. Paul firefighter Shane Clifton will be our brother today and always. Rest in peace, Brother Clifton, you will never be forgotten.
It's time for a short break. We'll be right back to learn about Autism Speaks.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 students is a victim of bullying? Have you ever wondered what schools are doing to protect your children? On the October edition of Your Police Report, we'll find out about the anti-bullying efforts in your local schools. Maplewood police officers started a golf tournament 11 years ago, and it has exploded. We'll tell you what and who is making the annual event such a growing success. Join us for these stories and much, much more on Your Police Report.
Welcome back to Northeast Journal. The Walk Now for Autism Speaks event was held in late September at Target Field. More than 2,000 attendees participated and have raised over $150,000 so far. Here to tell us more about the event and Autism Speaks in general is the Public Relations Chair for the Walk, Karen Edwards. Karen, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It feels like just yesterday we had you on for last year's walk, but the years just go by quickly, and here we are to kind of talk about the one that just took place. And first off, for people who are watching, if they're not familiar, what exactly is the organization Autism Speaks all about?
Autism Speaks is an organization that was actually founded by a gentleman whose grandson had autism, and at the time there weren't really a lot of resources to do research and advocacy for those with autism. So the organization was formed for that purpose, to do research, advocacy, and also provide resources not only to families with children, but also to the community. So for example, there are resource guides that at the beginning of school you can give the bus driver so they understand the issues with the child and how to respond to certain things, or the dentist or the doctor, or even a 100-day guide that when you first get diagnosed with autism, parents don't know what to do and where to go. And there's a nice resource guide that is customized for your geographic location that actually tells you these are the things to do and the order in which to do them.
And I know looking around the Autism Speaks website, like you said, there's those guides for the dentist or for teachers, but also even things for grandparents.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, obviously a lot is focused towards the parents, but the grandparents obviously don't want to be left out, but they might be confused, what does this all mean?
Right.
How best can I interact with my grandchild? So even things like that are pretty helpful.
Right, and it's really good too to have the community educated as well, because a lot of times parents don't want to go out with their kids because they're not sure what behaviors the child might have, and they often feel bad because they're looked down upon, and they're almost looked at like, where is your parenting? Why is this child acting this way and you're not doing anything? When they don't realize what some of the signs are.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned in the introduction, there was recently a big walk that took place. That's kind of a big annual fundraising event here locally, and in the past it was held for many years at the Mall of America, and this was the first year it was at Target Field. Can you give me a little bit of insight onto how you felt this year's event went?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a beautiful day, as you know, because you were there.
Oh.
It was a beautiful day, and we were at Target Field, a great venue, and there was music, dancing, a lot of activities for kids, and not only for families with autism, but just families in general to come out and have a nice, fun, safe day. But there were also, really importantly, a resource fair that had about 40 vendors and also service providers that provide services and could answer your questions about autism and kind of point families in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought it worked out well. As viewers might know, I have a young son with autism, so we have been frequent attenders of this walk, and it was neat. Even the opening ceremonies, they were able to kind of keep everyone together instead of being spread out in the mall. Like everyone kind of sat in a section or two, almost as if you were watching a ball game, but instead down lower you had people speaking and someone singing the national anthem, the ribbon got cut, and then everyone could go walk around the concourse. Like you said, there were plenty of vendors there and some fun giveaways and different activities. There was music and dancing and bouncy houses and all sorts of things that kids of all ages love.
Right, and it was a fun walk too because you could walk and stop at your leisure and stop and play games and then continue on, and then there was also quiet space too. So if the child was overwhelmed by all of the different noises and things happening, there were some places where they could go to just kind of decompress. So it was a great venue and a great day, and very successful for fundraising. But we do fundraise all year, although that is our primary fundraiser. But there is a website, Walk Now for Autism Speaks /Minnesota. And if anyone wants to go there, really year round, you can go and donate, and there are no minimums. You can donate whatever you would like.
Yeah, and it was inspiring at the walk to see a lot of teams there. You had large teams, maybe I know there's one that's an autism therapy center. They had a ton of people, but yet kind of like my family did, you have even just small teams. Ours was just 3 people, but you see people with their homemade T-shirts or their signs and things like that, and it's fun to see. You see the aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends that are out there supporting a loved one that has autism.
Yeah, when you're there, you could actually feel the energy. I mean, there's a lot of energy, people who really have come together to support the families that are dealing with autism. So it is really fun to see that.
And I know, speaking for myself, years ago, one of the first walks, or probably the first walk my family went to, it's almost overwhelming. It was kind of the first time we really felt like, wow, we're not alone.
You're not alone.
You kind of, in the initial stage of the diagnosis and everything, you feel so alone, and then you go there and realize, wow, there's so many families that are dealing with this, and you see maybe other families in a similar stage who have the little ones, but yet, you know, you see people who have been at this for a while and get some hope from them that, you know what, they've survived, and, you know, the kids are, you know, hopefully thriving and have picked up a lot of skills along the way.
Right, you pick up a lot of tips, but I think often you don't realize what a help you are to someone else who's just maybe starting on that journey with their child. So it really is a nice exchange of information, and just the comfort, like you said, of knowing there's other people out there. And people meet each other, and then they develop those relationships. The kids play together, they talk about different strategies. So it really is nice, and it gets the parents out of isolation as well.
And, you know, we've talked so much, obviously, in this interview already about autism, but I guess one of my first questions should have been, I know I always ask this right off the bat when I do these interviews, is if people are confused watching at home, you know, I hear a lot about autism, but I'm still not exactly sure what it is. Can you give a little more info about that?
Yeah, autism is a neurological disorder, and it primarily affects a person's ability to communicate verbally and non-verbally, but also to have appropriate social interactions. And then outwardly, there may be repetitive movements such as a rocking of their body, flapping of the hands, or like a continuous movement of the fingers. So those are some ways you can identify it. They call it an autism spectrum disorder. Some people hear it called ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and that's because people are affected at varying degrees, which is really one of the reasons it's so hard to find what the source is. And when I say that, you can have someone who is very high functioning, someone who has gone to college, holds down a great job, but maybe you look at them sometimes like, well, that was an awkward comment for the moment, not really socially appropriate, or something strange about it, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That might be someone with autism. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people who are nonverbal, really can't perform daily functions that we consider just ordinary, and really can't advocate for themselves. So you really have a lot of varying degree of how someone is affected.
Most definitely. And, you know, if anyone were to look around the Autism Speaks website, also see, you know, a big deal for a lot of families is, you know, just talking about, you know, adolescence, or even, you know, what is my child going to do when they are done with high school, or, you know, what types of jobs or living situations might there be. And that's something, you know, especially as the numbers of people being diagnosed is growing, that's obviously going to be an issue for many years to come.
Well, it is. And we all think of kids with autism as these little kids. And when Autism Speaks was founded about 10 years ago or so, they were little kids, but those little kids have grown up. So now they're teenagers and they're young adults. And so now there's a whole nother set of issues of where do they get jobs, where are they going to live, and also integrate into the community. And sometimes people will say, well, this isn't going to affect me, I don't have a child with autism. But there are so many children right now being diagnosed. In fact, it's the most pervasive developmental disorder in the United States, with 1 in 68 kids affected, 1 in 42 boys. So if you are not directly affected in your immediate family, somewhere you will be. Someone at work will have a child with autism, a grandchild, or maybe someone who becomes employed at your company will have autism. So it's really important that we all understand and be compassionate, you know, kind of understanding of their circumstances.
So what are some other types of things, you know, Autism Speaks is involved with? I know, you know, they obviously do a lot of medical research, even just trying to figure out, you know, what's causing this. And like I said, you know, I know they do even things with organizations, you know, trying to help with kids that go missing. You know, wandering's a big problem. I know, so I see a lot of information about that. It seems like they kind of have their hands in a lot of different areas.
They do. They have their hands in a lot of different areas because there's so many facets to this puzzle. But locally, I will just point out that the money that gets raised, most of it stays here locally. And one of the things that has really helped a lot of the local children is that we've been able to provide iPads and different learning tools for kids who can't communicate or have difficulty in expressing themselves, and they can do it through the electronic devices.
Yeah, that's a big help. I know my son has greatly benefited from that, and you know, they're not cheap, so for a lot of families to be able to, you know, get grants or to be able to get one, it can change the kid's life, the family's life. They can communicate. I know for my son, you know, It's been a great learning device too. There's lots of things. He's more motivated by some of the sounds and things on there than he might be with just doing something on paper, but he's still learning the things. It's just been a great tool for him.
Right.
And I know, countless other kids and families have benefited as well.
Right, and that's, I have 2 nephews that are autistic, and the electronic devices have just been a godsend in helping them progress, just incredibly.
And also keeps them busy on long car trips too.
It does,
as I found.
and most amazingly, both of my nephews are nonverbal. However, that doesn't mean that kids that are nonverbal don't understand you. It's really that they can't get it out. They can't express themselves. They hear you, and some of their frustration and their behaviors come from not being able to get it out. But my one nephew is very good with electronics, and whenever my brother has a problem with his iPhone or any electronic device, he explains it to him and he fixes it. Somehow he downloads the apps and he gets everything done, and he will show my brother what to do, but he can't verbally express himself, but he totally gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid we're pretty much out of time here, but once again, can we get that website if people are interested in learning more or having a donation?
Certainly. It's walknowforautismspeaks.org/Minnesota.
Okay, like you said, there's a lot of great information on there, and
Yep.
people might want to keep their eyes and ears open too, because I'm sure there'll be another walk next fall as well.
Every year.
And I know it's a little early yet, but are they planning on doing it at Target Field again?
I believe it is Target Field, and it will be our 10th walk here in Minnesota.
Oh, so definitely a time to celebrate.
Yes.
Well, Karen, I want to thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be talking with you again next year, hopefully in advance of the walk, and we'll give a nice preview for everybody. But we certainly appreciate your time and all your hard work making the walk a success.
I appreciate it too.
And it's time for another short break. We'll be right back with more of Northeast Journal in just a minute.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul Anderson, host of North St. Paul Notes on Channel 16. North St. Paul Notes is a monthly show that will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. This month we're going to talk about Fire Prevention Week with members of our fire department. So make sure you don't miss the October edition of North St. Paul Notes right here on GTN Channel 16.
Welcome back to Northeast Journal. You may remember a story we brought you a few months ago about Mikayla Holmgren, a talented dancer who trains in Matamidi. We were excited to learn that this story took 3rd place in the Special Audience category at the 2015 NATOA Government Programming Awards. The story was also recently nominated for a Midwest Regional Emmy in the Arts and Entertainment category. Let's take a look back at this story that myself and photographer-editor Jeff Melcock worked on. Everything about Mikayla Holmgren's dancing is inspirational, from her movements to her technique to her expressions. It's fitting then that Mikayla trains at the Inspiration Performing Arts Center in Matamidi, since it has inspiration in its name.
This is my passion because dancing makes me happy.
Mikayla has Down syndrome, and even though her parents wanted to give her every opportunity possible, they had no idea that she'd ever become an accomplished dancer.
Having a child with special needs, there's a lot of, she was actually born quite early with a lot of medical issues, and you're looking at this little 4-pound baby going, what is her future going to be like? And it's amazing to see that with all the surgeries she has had when she was a baby, to see how strong she is now is a miracle in itself.
When Mikayla was about 4 years old, her parents, Sandy and Craig, thought dancing might be a good outlet for her.
So many times when you have a special needs kid, you're kind of on a separate or a different road, not necessarily a bad road, but just a different road. And this is a chance for her to be, a part of an activity that includes everybody, and she can participate and hold her own with everyone else.
Mikayla has trained at a number of schools, with the last couple of years being at the Inspiration Performing Arts Center in Matamidi. Owner Katie Owings talks about what makes Mikayla such an amazing dancer as well as an award-winning choreographer.
Mikayla has the ability to really take a step back and listen and apply correction, and she has amazing amount of focus on the dance floor. And so through that, her technique and her capabilities have really grown, I've seen, in the last couple years.
Many kids lose interest in dance somewhere along the way, but Mikayla's parents noticed that not only was she still passionate about dance, she was beginning to win awards for it.
You know, some of the comments, from even the judges, from independent people, judges' favorite for the smile and the passion and things that she brings out during a dance. All of her instructors, the way the kids have embraced her, all positive feedback.
The Holmgrens have enough trophies, videos, and photos to fill an entire room. They're always in the crowd at every one of Mikayla's performances, including a dance that she choreographed and won an award for last year to the song Burn Bright.
It brings me to tears quite a bit, watching her do what she needs to do, and especially when she's dancing and just nailing her whole dance. And a lot of times I have to go back and watch the video again just to see what she did because I can't see through the tears.
For Owings and the other instructors at Inspiration Performing Arts, Mikayla is a model student.
She has this way of illuminating people all around her, and lifting others and encouraging others and inspiring and empowering. And in fact, she's a mentor here at the center, so she gives back, not only through her dancing, but in other ways of service.
Mikayla loves sharing her expertise with younger dancers.
I like little kids, but I always mentor the small children on Mondays. It's so cute, I love it.
Mikayla keeps busy outside of dance with gymnastics, cheer squad, and an upcoming missions trip to Haiti. She also just found out that she was accepted into Bethel University and will start studies there in the fall of 2016.
I was in tears yesterday, and I for Bethel, I accepted for college, so I did that, and that made me feel happy.
I believe in you'll come running.
There's no doubt Mikayla will continue to inspire no matter what stage she is on throughout her life. And that's all the time we have for this month. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again next month for another edition of Northeast Journal.